Wow, so here we are with the third HBH podcast episode of 2023. I have not done a lot this year. I wanted to get on here and talk about Evil Dead Rise. I did do a podcast on this that was pretty much me just rambling, and I'm not here to review Evil Dead Rise. I'm just kind of here to talk about it. It's going to be kind of a rambling podcast again, but I want to talk about it more in depth and just really get all my thoughts out there because now I've had time to let this movie sink in. And by the way, I'm not sure if there's going to be spoilers in this or not. So if you haven't seen Evil Dead Rise, go check out the movie and then come back and play this podcast. Evil Dead Rise is a 2023 horror film directed by Lee Cornin. I believe that's how you say his last name. I am not familiar with his work. I'm actually on Google right now looking at the Evil Dead Rise page. I'm trying to see if I know any of his work here. Nothing's looking familiar, but he did a fantastic job with Evil Dead Rise. Currently has a 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. And let me just say one thing. Every time I see Evil Dead Rise on social media, whether it be Facebook or Instagram, I have not seen anything negative about this movie. And personally, I have nothing negative to say about it. This is my second favorite movie of the year. My first favorite movie of the year is going to Scream 6, but Evil Dead Rise is definitely number 2. I think this is a great Evil Dead film. Personally, I find the Evil Dead franchise to be perfect, but with that being said, I want to talk about Evil Dead 2013 for a second. Um, Directed by Freddy Alvarez, who also did Don't Breathe. Um, Evil Dead 2013, the first time I seen the movie, I was not a huge fan of the film. It has grown on me. I like it a lot more now. And it wasn't because it didn't have Ash Williams involved. I just didn't feel like it had that Evil Dead feel. And then I went back and I rewatched it for a second watch and I realized I was completely wrong and that it's a really good remake. It does have that Evil Dead feel. My first experience, I guess, wasn't the best. So when I went back and rewatched it, I realized, this is actually a good remake, actually a good film. Fede Alvarez is a great director, anyways. So yeah, now I like Evil Dead 2013, and that wasn't the case with Evil Dead Rise. I was a little bit scared because obviously this movie is going to be more modernized. Is that a modernized? Yeah. More modernized than the first three Evil Dead movies, the original Sam Raimi trilogy. And I was kind of worried about that. I was like, with this having that more modern feel, am I going to enjoy this movie as much as I do the original films? Because I'm a big Evil Dead fan. The Evil Dead from 1981 is in my top 5 favorite horror movies of all time. I love the Evil Dead. This franchise is one of my favorites. And I was just a little worried. I was like, am I going to like this one? Because, I had that experience with Evil Dead 2013 of watching it for the first time and not being a fan of it. And of course now I am, but that wasn't the case with Evil Dead Rise. I watched it for the first time in theaters, had a great time. Love Evil Dead Rise. I'm going to say that right now. The experience was amazing. And let me just say one thing. It's the title of this podcast. Evil Dead Rise is absolutely scary and creepy. And we haven't had a horror movie like this in a long time. Most horror movies, they rely off jump scares and just all those typical horror tropes that we know. Evil Dead Rise doesn't do that. This is a scary movie. It's creepy. The lady who played Ellie, which is the mom in this film, I believe the actress's name was Alyssa Sutherland. She is terrifying and scary, and she made this film. She outshines everyone. She is the star of this movie. But with that being said, I think everybody did a fantastic job, and I loved it. I thought this movie was crazy scary, crazy creepy, and that's what you want in a horror movie, and we finally got that with this movie. I think this is one of the scariest films we've had probably in the past 10 years. I mean, it was that good. It's a typical Evil Dead movie. If you're a fan of Evil Dead 2013, you're going to enjoy Evil Dead Rise. It does have the similar feel. I do think Evil Dead Rise is a better movie than Evil Dead 2013, but they both have that similar feel. So if you're a fan of that, you're going to like Evil Dead Rise. And it's a typical Evil Dead movie. I mean, we don't hear the word Deadite, but Evil Dead fans know that they are Deadites. And the story here isn't too insane. Alyssa Sutherland's character Ellie lives in this apartment building with her children, and she's a single mother. And an earthquake happens at some point in this movie, which is new for the franchise. And her son gets a little too curious, and he finds the Book of the Dead, aka the Necronomicon. And let me just say, the new Necronomicon looks awesome. I mean, it's definitely different. It's closed with like teeth. There's like really sharp teeth on the side of the book that keeps the book closed. But what happens is the son gets his blood on the book, and the book opens. He finds some records as well down in this vault area. It's almost like a bank vault. He finds the book, he finds the records. He plays these records. The records say some words, and the evil shows up to the apartment building and possesses the mom, Ellie, which is pretty much your main story here. And let me just say that every scene you have of her when she is possessed is perfection. I mean, she is terrifying. She's scary. There's a scene where the whole scene is shot through a peek hole through a door, and it's one of the best scenes in the entire franchise, probably. Now, I don't think this movie tops the original 3 Sam Raimi movies. I just think it's better than Evil Dead 2013, and I'm not gonna really involve Ash versus Evil Dead, the TV show, just because it's a TV show. I'm strictly talking about the films. But this tops Evil Dead 2013, but this has some really creepy moments, and I think that peak hole scene is one of the best scenes in the entire franchise. I mean, you have iconic lines in this movie as well, like "Open up now" and just all that stuff. Just so creepy. Mommy's with the maggots now, and just some really good stuff here. And the character of Beth, who's played by Lily Sullivan, she's kind of like our new Ash Williams in this movie. I believe Ellie is her sister. So yeah, Beth has kind of taken on that role of Ash Williams. She's sort of like our hero. And she did really good. I would like to see her in future Evil Dead films because this is not going to be the last Evil Dead movie. This movie, I believe at the time of me recording this podcast, has almost $100 million worldwide. Um, so we're gonna get more, and they already made that announcement that they want to do an Evil Dead movie every 2 to 3 years, anyways. So I want to see that, and honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel to Evil Dead Rise, unless they want to go a whole nother route where they just want to make something completely different with a new director and a whole new story. I'm definitely down for that. But, yeah, I mean, this movie was really good. If you're an Evil Dead fan or just a horror fan in general, go see this movie. If you're not too familiar with the Evil Dead franchise, I would say you don't really have to be. This is a movie you could if you're just a horror fan in general, this is a movie that you could go see and just enjoy. I mean, you don't really have to look at this movie as an Evil Dead movie. The only connection there really is the Book of the Dead, aka the Necronomicon. You could also look at this as just basically a mom gets possessed in an apartment building. Yeah, that's how you could look at it. You don't have to necessarily see it as an Evil Dead film. And I think that's what's so great about this movie because it's a very good standalone. And yeah, I think that also is another strong point of this movie because you don't have to watch the past films to enjoy this one. But I will have to say this is probably one of the scariest movies within the last 10 years. I mean, it's terrifying. It's really good, and go see it. So yeah, that is my little rant on Evil Dead Rise. If I was going to rate this movie out of 10, I would probably give it a 9 out of 10. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10 because the first one is. And the rest of them are about 9 out of 10s, but this one's definitely one of my favorites, better than the Evil Dead 2013 remake, but very good film. If you're an Evil Dead fan, go see it. If you're a horror fan, go see it. And yeah, let me know what you guys think of Evil Dead Rise in the comment section down below if you guys have seen the film. And expect more HBH podcasts coming soon. I actually want to do a live episode soon. Not sure when that's going to happen, but expect that very soon. I would also like to go back to doing videos. I want May 2023 to be my so-called return to YouTube. It's something I've been slacking on, but it is what it is. I'm going to make up for it and try to make a big comeback. But with that being said, if you guys did enjoy this podcast, please leave a like and subscribe. That would be much appreciated.